I look at the things from an alternative point of view. It would be a waste of time to discuss Zelensky's lies in the aftermath of probable Ukrainian missile strike in a Polish village. I am not here to expose President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky's falsehood. We all know that he is a liar, and the very fact that he is a puppet of the warmongering cabal of the globalists, neocon swamp in the British and the American political establishment and the deep state criminal cartel. Well, he has an agenda. However, Zelensky's lies have thoroughly exposed the hollowness of the British and the American political elites and West's military apparatus called NATO. This is something mainstream media won't discuss. We are going to analyze all these things, but before that, let's hear from the General Mark Alexander Milley, who currently serves as the 20th Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff of the United States of America. First, let us listen from Mark Milley, and then we are going to analyze his statement.
Start with the Russians. Ukraine's a pretty big country. This is not a small piece of turf. And the probability of Russia achieving its strategic objectives, of conquering Ukraine, of overrunning Ukraine, the probability of that happening is close to zero. I suppose theoretically it's possible. Maybe, I guess, but I don't see it happening militarily. So I just don't see that happening. But they do currently occupy about 20% of that of Ukraine. So they occupy a piece of ground that's about 900 kilometers long, and I don't know, probably about 75 or 80 kilometers deep. So it's not a small piece of ground. And they invaded this country with upwards of 170, 180,000 troops in multiple field armies, combined arms armies. And they have suffered a tremendous amount of casualties, but he's also done this mobilization and called up additional people. So the Russians have reinforced, and they still have significant Russian combat power inside Ukraine. Now, Ukraine's had great success in the defense. They did a tremendous job in defeating the Russian offensive. It's incredible what they were able to do. And then they went on the offensive at the beginning of September. And they had great success up in Kharkiv, and they've had better success even down in Kherson, as you just witnessed. But Kherson and Kharkiv, physically, geographically, are relatively small compared to the whole. So that the military task of militarily kicking the Russians physically out of Ukraine is a very difficult task. And it's not going to happen in the next couple of weeks unless the Russian army completely collapses, which is unlikely. So in terms of probability, the probability of a Ukrainian military victory defined as kicking the Russians out of all of Ukraine, to include what they define or what they claim as Crimea, the probability of that happening anytime soon is not high, militarily. Politically, there may be a political solution where politically the Russians withdraw. That's possible. You want to negotiate from a position of strength. Russia right now is on its back. The Russian military is suffering tremendously. Leaders have been, the leadership is really hurting bad. They've lost a lot of casualties, killed and wounded. They've lost, I won't go over exact numbers because they're classified, but they've lost a tremendous amount of their tanks and their infantry fighting vehicles. They've lost a lot of their fourth and fifth generation fighters and helicopters and so on and so forth. The Russian military is really hurting bad. So you want to negotiate at a time when you're at your strength and your opponent is at weakness. And it's possible, maybe, that there'll be a political solution. All I'm saying is there's a possibility for it. That's all I'm saying.
There are plenty of falsehood in General Mark Milley's address as well. And we understand that. He has his compulsions and he has his own prerogatives. But we got to be logical and rational. We need to understand that Russia's withdrawal or retreat from the western part of Kherson, that is from the western flank of Dnieper River, is purely tactical. We need to understand that Russia has not withdrawn from entire Kherson. Russian withdrawal from Kherson is only limited to the western flank of Dnieper River. Russia holds, as of today, 65% of Kherson on ground, which is located on the eastern flank of the Dnieper River, although The main city of Kherson is located on the western flank of the Dnieper River. Therefore, saying that Russia has withdrawn from Kherson is a disinformation. Therefore, if someone says that Russia has withdrawn from Kherson, then he is spreading a falsehood. He is probably living in fool's paradise. And this tactical retreat of the Russian forces from the western flank of the Dnieper River did not result from a military defeat. Russia has actually won the entire Kherson on both flanks of the Dnieper River. In Battle of Kherson, estimated 12,000 plus Ukrainian men have perished as opposed to 1,200 men from the Russian side. So Ukraine's loss was tenfold higher than that of the Russians. Russia's tactical retreat from Kherson serves Russia's military strategy, which I have explained in a previous episode. In the last 9 months or so, plenty of American, British and NATO military equipments, hardware and personnel have entered Romania, and from there, these equipments and personnel have entered Odessa. Recently, United States of America has deployed its 101st Airborne Division in Romania. Once Russia ventured into Kherson West, that is the portion of Kherson on the western flank of the Dnieper River, and once Russian forces started to attack Nikolaev, USA had no other option but to send men and material to Odessa via Romania. USA and NATO thought that if Russia continues to hold on to West Kherson, captures Nikolaev and then ventures down south into Odessa, it would give NATO ample opportunity to trap all Russian forces on the western flank of the Dnieper River and down south in Odessa. They thought that they would blow off two bridges across the Dnieper River, that is the Antonovsky Bridge and the bridge at Nova Kakhovka, and they would succeed. Although Ukrainian forces have completely damaged the bridge at Nova Kakhovka and to a great extent damaged the Antonovsky Bridge, but it didn't really hinder Russian withdrawal from Kherson West simply because Russian forces were not too deep into Nikolaev and they didn't venture down south in Odessa. And once Russia completed its withdrawal from the West Kherson, Russian forces have blown up parts of Antonovsky Bridge, which is now completely dysfunctional. And this now traps Ukrainian forces operating in North Zaporizhia, which is on the eastern flank of the Dnieper River. And now that Russia has pulled out of western part of Kherson, all these American and NATO forces and their equipments and their hardware are now stranded over there in Odessa, which now run the risk of being picked up by caliber cruise missiles, loitering munitions, kamikaze drones, or for that matter, in tactical air operation. As I speak, missile strike has already started in Odessa. Mark Milley's statement has to be scrutinized in the current geopolitical context. Following Ukrainian missile strike in Poland, Volodymyr Zelensky himself went on to peddle fake news and started spreading falsehood. Western media too went on to a frenzy. These media houses did not wait a single moment to validate the findings on the ground. They were seen discussing whether the Article 5 of NATO's charter could be invoked. These people call themselves professionals. Well, we all know that these large media houses operate under the instruction of globalists and their deep state criminal cartel. However, it is clear that the US administration, including the President of the United States of America, Joe Biden, took a cautious approach. So what really changed the game? I think US military leadership stamped their authority over the neocons in the Biden administration. Cool heads with good sense in the American military leadership have actually avoided a catastrophe. And this was becoming increasingly clear if you observe the events that unfolded in the G20 summit in Bali, Indonesia. West, in spite of an all-out effort by the British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, could not manage a condemnation from China or for that matter India against Russian action in Ukraine. Mark Milley's statement implies that United States of America, Britain, NATO and collective West has actually accepted a humiliating defeat. I repeat once more, Mark Milley's statement implies that United States of America, Britain, NATO and collective West has actually accepted a humiliating defeat. He kind of hinted that Ukraine should accept the fact that it has actually forfeited 20% of its landmass. By downplaying the missile strike episode in Poland, United States of America, Britain, NATO have demonstrated the fact that they do not have the required military strength to fight it out with the Russians. United States of America, Britain and NATO can of course pat their own back by creating a narrative that they have prevented Ukraine from becoming a landlocked nation and they have prevented Russia from annexing Nikolaev and Odessa, at least for the time being. If United States of America and Britain claim that they have foiled Russia's strategic ambition to annex Odessa and turning Ukraine into a landlocked country, then going by the same logic, one can say that United States of America and Britain have failed miserably in their objective to topple Mr. Vladimir Putin's political establishment, instigate civil war in Russia, and ultimately disintegrate Russian Federation. However, I think Russia would annex more territories in the eastern and northern part of Ukraine, and that is the reason why Mark Milley has made this statement in his address, just in order to facilitate a political solution before Russia storms through or runs over the entire eastern Ukraine now that Russia has pulled back from western part of Kherson and mobilized almost 300,000 men from its reserves. This has serious implications in the outcome of this conflict as well. These Russian forces would first reinforce the Russian defense lines in the southern part of Kherson, that is along the eastern flank of the Dnieper River. Then Russia would try and capture northern part of Zaporizhia. This part of Zaporizhia is still under Ukrainian control. Ukrainian forces are in great peril there because they themselves have bombarded the bridge at Nova Kakhovka. It is now completely dysfunctional. Therefore, now the Ukrainian forces operating in the northern part of Zaporizhia along the eastern flank of Dnieper River are going to get trapped. Once Russian forces take northern part of Zaporizhia, they would mount an assault on Dnipropetrovsk. That is their main target. They would encircle Dnieper from south. In the meantime, Bakhmut would be in Russia's control completely. Already, PMC Wagner Group is in the Bakhmut city. Once Russia takes Bakhmut, they would go for Kramatorsk and Sloviansk. Once Kramatorsk and Sloviansk fall to the Russian forces, they would be able to encircle Dnieper from 3 directions. And then the final assault on Dnieper would begin. This is how the war or the Russia-Ukraine conflict is going to unfold over the next few months. That's what my opinion. Thank you. Thanks for watching this video. Kindly share this video with your loved ones and subscribe to this channel. Bye-bye.